Egyptian president announces the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum. President Sisi calls to build on the Sharm el-Sheikh summit outcomes, urging firm support for the Gaza ceasefire. And the Egyptian Prime Minister condemns the Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon. PM here in Cairo. Time for the news with Mihal Al-Hamalawi. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has said that the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum marks a new chapter in Egypt's timeless story, honoring an eternal civilization whose brilliance endures forever. In an interview with Qnews, Egyptologist Zahi Hawass called the Grand Egyptian Museum's opening a big day, tracing the project's start to 2002.
في قضية هذا الوطن العريق فهذا أكبر متحف في العالم مخصص لحضارة واحدة حضارة مصر التي لا ينقضي بهاؤها.
In an interview with Qnews, Egyptologist Zahi Hawass called the Grand Egyptian Museum's opening a big day, tracing the project's start to 2002 and direct backing from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to completion, promising a once-in-a-lifetime Tutankhamun display. Hawass said that the museum's signatory rests on three pillars: its setting by Khufu's pyramid, its scale as a one-civilization museum, and a unified display of the full Tutankhamun collection. He highlighted story-led curation, light, space, and text, guiding viewers alongside Japanese-Egyptian work on Khufu's boats and a major library and conservation labs funded partly by Tut exhibitions abroad. He further noted that rotating displays will keep content fresh. Hawass recalled CD and genetic studies linking Tut to Tutankhamun and Queen T, adding that the king's mummy remains in the Valley of the Kings to preserve context, framing the museum as scholarship, spectacle, and public pride in one. Fireworks lit the Cairo sky and drone swarms traced pharaonic symbols as Egypt opened the Grand Egyptian Museum in a lavish ceremony after years of delays. Egypt unveiled the Grand Egyptian Museum with a nighttime spectacle of fireworks and synchronized drones forming hieroglyphics and royal emblems above Giza. Dignitaries and guests entered past the Ramses II Colossus before a staged program of music and multimedia mapping on the museum facade. Authorities framed the opening as a cultural milestone that anchors tourism and international partnerships in conservation and research. The complex, beside the pyramids, now moves into phased public access, with headline galleries and visitor routes activated following the ceremony. Drone swarms painted the Giza night with pharaonic figures above the Grand Egyptian Museum as synchronized formations rippled across the sky for the opening ceremony. New aerial displays crowned the museum's opening, with fleets of drones sketching hieroglyphic motifs, royal cartouches, and sacred figures over the plateau. Choreography was timed to a live score, with patterns shifting in sequence before dissolving into light trails above the museum facade. Organizers said that the program was designed to showcase Egypt's heritage through coded imagery and precision flight, and layered symbols that appeared to unfurl towards the pyramids. Egypt inaugurated the Grand Egyptian Museum in a spectacular ceremony led by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, unveiling a landmark that celebrates 5 millennia of heritage and signals a new era of culture and tourism in Giza.
Here in Giza, within sight of the pyramids, Egypt inaugurated the Grand Egyptian Museum with a spectacular ceremony led by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, sealing the opening of a cultural landmark decades in the making. The night unfolded with orchestral performances, precision choreography, fireworks, and drone light displays, welcoming royal figures, world leaders, and international dignitaries to a celebration of Egypt's living heritage and global stature.
واليوم ونحن نحتفل معا بافتتاح المتحف المصري الكبير، نكتب فصلا جديدا من تاريخ الحاضر والمستقبل في قضية هذا الوطن العريق. فهذا أكبر متحف في العالم مخصص لحضارة واحدة، حضارة مصر التي لا ينقضي بهاؤها.
Rising between Cairo and the desert, the museum is presented as the world's largest devoted to a single civilization. Its geometry aligns with the Giza Plateau and carries visitors through vast, light-filled halls toward a grand staircase that frames timeless views of the pyramids. At the atrium, the red granite colossus of Ramses II greets guests before they enter galleries that showcase tens of thousands of masterpieces spanning millennia of art, belief, and statecraft, conserved and displayed to international standards. The inauguration drew an exceptional international turnout that reflects Egypt's cultural reach and diplomatic weight. Officials highlighted the museum's role in energizing tourism, creating jobs, and inspiring creative industries, positioning Egypt as a premier destination for learning, culture, and exchange. Beyond its scale, the project stands as a statement of modern capability, meticulous preservation, and national pride. This opening was more than a ceremony. It was a promise that Egypt's story is not only preserved, but presented with confidence to the world, inviting every visitor to walk through history and feel its future.
And for more analysis, we now move to Salma Al-Fay in our newsroom. To you, Salma.
Thank you, Hela. And for further analysis, we are joined from Cairo by Dr. Hussein Kamal, the Director of the Conservation Center at the Grand Egyptian Museum. Welcome, sir, to Qnews. Sir, can you tell us, how does the Grand Egyptian Museum change the global story of Egyptology, moving research leadership back again to Cairo in practical terms?
الحقيقة, the Restoration Center at the Grand Egyptian Museum has been carrying out this role for a while now, since establishment, since inception. It's a research center in the science of artifact restoration and Egyptology. And that's why it includes like 160 scientific research published in international journals by the Restoration Center. This research has been conducted on Egyptian artifacts, especially in the collection of King Tutankhamun. Such discoveries has been documented and published as scientific research.
Sir, what new discoveries, or we may say rereadings of the artifacts, do you expect once the full collections are studied under one roof in Egypt?
Our understanding of artifact restoration is not only interventive conservation to interfere to preserve the artifact, but we also work to reveal more information to be told or narrated by the artifact. When this information retell the history, a lot of information were unveiled this way, and they were published by scientific journals. This included the technologies of making these artifacts, the technologies that were anciently used, and this, of course, benefit us by and tell us how to restore the artifact, and they also unveil the secrets of the artifacts we deal with. While we worked to collect these necklaces and restoring the lost strings, we found some parts while reordering these parts. Some of them symbolized hieroglyphs created by the Egyptian artisan for each part to be reordered once again, even after being dismantled.
Dr. Kamal, can you shed some light, please, on how will the GEM set regional standards for provenance work and the fight against illicit trafficking, and maybe what cases are priorities for repatriation?
On this point, I'm talking about the restoration center playing a part in the restoring the artifacts, but on the repatriation of artifacts or fighting against illicit trafficking, this is a state policy. And the Grand Egyptian Museum only plays a part in spreading awareness on this, but for the legal part, there are laws and acts applied at the international and at the state level, not on the local level.
Oh, so the museum will have nothing to do about that. Okay, what conservation or display innovations are at the GEM, maybe in terms of lighting, climate control, seismic protection, should the public know about as the Egyptian world firsts?
Since the beginning, we designed the display rooms in accordance with a plan for conservation and how to preserve each and every artifact and how to address it during the design phase of the display halls, which adopted all the preservation and conservation technologies and the infrastructure for proactive and preventive ways of display to help preserve the displayed antiquities.
Sir, in cultural diplomacy, how can the GEM become Egypt's main platform for maybe long-term partnerships with the African, Arab, and international museums and universities?
We've started already a group of international partnerships. The international cooperation, of course, reinforces our capacities since we hold capacity exchange and experience and expertise exchange in the Grand Egyptian Museum. We've had partnerships with scientific institutions in the field of museums and preserving cultural heritage.
And let's talk about maybe the future and maybe looking ahead 5 years. What do you think is your vision for training a new generation of the Egyptian curators and conservators so Egypt may lead the field from Cairo outwards?
on the top of our priorities, we work to prepare and equip the display rooms. But in addition, certainly we have taken steps to train staff from Egypt and abroad inside the Restoration Center and the Training Center inside the Egyptian Museum. This role we have been carrying out for a while now, and we will increase it and focus especially on the scientific and the knowledge circulation aspect during the upcoming period for after the inauguration.
And that was Dr. Hussein Kamal, the director of the Conservation Center at the Grand Egyptian Museum from Cairo. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. And now we go back to Hela Al-Hamalawi in our studio. Hela.
Thank you so much for the analysis, Salma. Now for the latest developments in Gaza.
And then, of course, we have the host tonight. And I just want to thank you very much. It was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful and very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate. And you are a great leader. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great, great president. And I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. Thank you very much.
Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has urged building on the outcomes of the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit, stressing the need to solidify the Gaza ceasefire, ensure humanitarian aid flows, and accelerate reconstruction efforts. This came during his meeting with German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier in Cairo, where President al-Sisi expressed Egypt's desire for close coordination with Germany ahead of the Gaza Reconstruction Conference. The German president praised Egypt's pivotal role in mediating the Gaza ceasefire and organizing the peace summit. Both leaders reaffirmed that the two-state solution remains the sole path to achieving lasting peace and stability in the Middle East. Both leaders discussed strengthening strategic cooperation in politics, defense, energy, and industry, and agreed to enhance coordination on migration and infrastructure. The Egyptian president expressed appreciation for the participation of his German counterpart in the German Egyptian Museum's inauguration, a reflection of deep Egypt-Germany ties. Egypt has dispatched its 63rd aid convoy under the Zaid al-Izza, or Provision of Honor from Egypt to Gaza initiative, from Rafah to Gaza via the Karam Abu Salim border crossing. This convoy is delivering over 8,000 tons of urgent humanitarian and relief aid to Gaza. The shipment includes 5,300 tons of food and flour, 2,300 tons of medical and relief supplies, and 700 tons of fuel, underscoring Egypt's continued commitment to supporting Gaza's civilians. Since July the 27th, the Egyptian convoys have carried over 500,000 tons of aid, coordinated by 35,000 volunteers across Egypt's logistics centers and the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing. Israel released images that it says show Nahal Brigade troops operating east of the Yellow Line in Gaza, the pullback boundary where forces remain under the ceasefire with Hamas. The Israeli occupation military published footage that it said depicts Nahal Brigade units east of the so-called Yellow Line, the buffer behind which Israeli troops pulled back and are stationed under the truce framework. The army did not disclose timing or precise coordinates, and the material has not been independently verified. There was no immediate comment from Hamas or mediators. The claim comes amid ongoing scrutiny of ceasefire compliance and the status of forward positions along the Gaza perimeter. In Tel Aviv, families and supporters rallied for the return of all detainees, holding banners with their images as organizers pressed for the handover of remaining detainees' remains under the ceasefire. Dozens gathered on a central stage in Tel Aviv, displaying portraits of detainees held in Gaza and calling for their immediate return. Since the truce began, Hamas has released the 20 surviving detainees it still held and begun transferring the remains of the dead through mediators. Families said that identification and repatriation must accelerate, urging sustained international pressure for full accounting, medical verification, and dignified return. The mediators and humanitarian agencies are facilitating the process amid ongoing scrutiny of ceasefire compliance and access arrangements. In Qnews, 8 trucks, including World Food Programme consignments, moved north through Gaza, part of ongoing deliveries to hard-hit districts. Convoys bearing humanitarian supplies rolled out of southern Gaza towards the north, with several trucks carrying World Food Programme boxes. Local coordinators said that routes are adjusted daily to avoid damaged roads and active security cordons, while agencies prioritize food staples, medical kits, and water purification items. Distribution points are set up at schools and community centers, where access permits, with logistics experts cautioning that flows remain vulnerable to checkpoint delays and fuel constraints as needs outpace available stocks. In Nusayrat, UNRWA schools sheltering displaced families have begun a limited return to classes, with students attending morning activities while some families remain housed in the buildings. At an UNRWA school-turned-shelter in Nusayrat, children lined up for morning assemblies as a phased reopening brought lessons back for the first time in months. Classrooms share corridors with relief tents and aid stores, and schedules are shortened to manage crowding and sanitation. The Guardian said that the start offers structure after a long hiatus, where children spend days queuing for water and food or playing in the streets. UN staff and volunteers are rotating spaces, prioritizing basic literacy, math, and psychosocial support, while keeping shelters operational for families still displaced. Hamas said that it recovered 3 bodies of Israeli detainees in Gaza, including one identified by its sources as Colonel Assaf Hamami from east of Khan Yunis. The Hamas movement announced the recovery of 3 Israeli bodies in Gaza, with sources naming one as Colonel Assaf Hamami, reportedly found east of Khan Yunis. The statement follows Israel's assertion that 3 bodies transferred on Friday did not belong to detainees on October 7, 2023. The latest claim has not been independently verified. Mediators continue coordinating remains exchanges and identification under ceasefire mechanisms, with forensic teams tasked to confirm identities before any formal handover and repatriation. UNRWA Commissioner General Philip Lazzarini confirmed that the agency is providing in-person classes in Gaza for more than 25,000 children, in addition to online lessons aimed at reaching another 300,000 children. Lazzarini emphasized that literacy and education serve as a remedy for despair and psychological trauma. He explained that this major effort would not have been possible without the dedication of thousands of UNRWA teachers who prove every day that the agency continues to fulfill its mission despite the challenges. The Israeli Broadcasting Authority reported that the occupation government has approved the entry of Hamas and the Red Cross into the Yellow Line area to search for the bodies of captives. The authority added that the tours conducted by Hamas and the Red Cross in Gaza include areas under the control of the Israeli army.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has announced that he will visit Beirut next month to advance bilateral cooperation, affirming Egypt's commitment to supporting Lebanon in all fields. During a joint press conference with Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, Madbouli condemned Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon and called for withdrawal from occupied sites. He reiterated Egypt's readiness to aid Lebanon's reconstruction and stability. For his part, Lebanese Prime Minister Salam praised Egypt's regional role, stressing both nations' determination to transform agreements into tangible progress. Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam hailed Egypt's regional leadership and the Grand Egyptian Museum's opening as he and Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli co-chaired the 10th Egypt-Lebanon Higher Committee in Cairo, announcing new agreements across key sectors. At a joint press conference after sharing the 10th Egypt-Lebanon Higher Commission, the Prime Ministers Mustafa Madbouli and Nawaf Salam said that the talks produced agreements and MOUs spanning various fields and sectors. Salam praised the Grand Egyptian Museum's inauguration as a civilizational milestone and lauded Egypt's role under President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in supporting Arab causes, foremost Palestine, and advancing regional stability. He thanked Egypt for continued political and diplomatic backing to Lebanon, emphasizing a partnership rooted in long cultural ties and a shared commitment to turn understandings into deliverables that benefit citizens in both countries. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has delivered a speech at the Arab League urging the organization to evolve into a strategic instrument for regional security and development. He emphasized that the Arab League embodies regional legitimacy and called for reviving the concept of Arab national security. Salam reaffirmed Lebanon's rejection of any Palestinian displacement, highlighting that water and energy security form integral parts of sovereignty. He also stressed that the prosperity of one Arab state ensures that of its neighbors, calling for a renewed vision of Arab neighborhood relations amid continued Israeli violations. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati has reaffirmed Egypt's unwavering support for Lebanon's sovereignty, unity, and full state authority over its territory during talks with Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam in Cairo. He welcomed the recent momentum in bilateral ties and stressed advancing cooperation across political, economic, and cultural fields. Abdel Ati underscored Egypt's backing for Lebanon against Israeli violations and urged full implementation of UN Resolution 1701. He also discussed Gaza developments and Egypt's preparations for the upcoming Cairo Conference on Recovery and Reconstruction. In Lebanon's Nabateeh district, images show a charred car a day after an Israeli strike that the Lebanese Health Ministry said killed 4 people. Israel confirms the strike, saying that it targeted a Hezbollah Radwan force member. Footage from Nabateeh show a burned-out vehicle and debris at the scene, one day after an Israeli strike. Lebanon's health ministry reported 4 fatalities. The Israeli military confirmed the operation, stating that it killed a member of Hezbollah's Radwan force in southern Lebanon. Local authorities and residents inspected the area as investigators documented blast patterns and shrapnel damage. There was no immediate independent verification of the identities of the dead beyond the Israeli claim. Officials said that casualty details may be updated as next of notifications proceed. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But before we wrap it up, here is a recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. The Egyptian president announces the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum. President Sisi calls to build on the Sharm el-Sheikh summit outcomes, urging firm support for the Gaza ceasefire. And the Egyptian Prime Minister condemns the Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But for more stories and live updates, you can follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG. From all of us here, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for all the news coming your way on Q News.